A cold wind swept through the ancient stones of Eldoria, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and forgotten glories. The kingdom, once vibrant and bathed in the golden light of prosperity, now lay under a perpetual shroud of gray. Whispers slithered through the cobblestone streets, tales of a curse, of a royal family marked by an unforgiving destiny. This is not a story of valiant knights or triumphant battles, but a descent into the heart of darkness, where love curdled into poison, ambition consumed all, and the innocence of a child was but a fleeting shadow against the coming night. We speak of a king, a queen, and a princess, whose lives were threads woven into a tapestry of sorrow, their fates sealed by a cruel hand unseen, their names destined to be etched into the annals of tragedy, forever bound to the cold stone of a forgotten tomb. King Thuron, a figure of formidable presence, had clawed his way to the throne through a tempest of blood and intrigue. His reign began with a promise of strength, his eyes alight with an unyielding ambition that shone brighter than any crown. The old guard, steeped in ancient customs, watched with apprehension as he dismantled traditions, forging a new order with an iron fist. He built grand fortifications, amassed vast treasuries, and crushed his enemies without mercy, his reputation spreading like wildfire across the lands. Yet beneath the veneer of invincibility lay a heart that hungered for more than mere power. It yearned for an heir, a continuation of his legacy, a testament to his absolute rule. The shadow of his past, however, clung to him like a shroud, a silent testament to the ruthless choices that had paved his path to supremacy and the hidden price of such an ascent. Then came Alara, the queen. She arrived in Eldoria like a fragile bloom in a barren land, her beauty a stark contrast to the king's hardened demeanor. Her origins were shrouded in mystery, a foreign princess from a distant, fatting lineage, chosen for a strategic alliance that promised stability. Her eyes, often downcast, held a depth of sorrow that few noticed, overshadowed by her ethereal grace. The people, initially charmed by her quiet elegance, soon found her elusive, her smile a fleeting melancholic expression that rarely reached her eyes. She moved through the grand halls of the palace like a ghost, a silent observer of the king's escalating ambitions, her heart a gilded cage, longing for a freedom she could never possess. The weight of her role and the secrets of her past pressed down upon her, slowly extinguishing the light within her soul. The birth of Princess Lyra was heralded by a brief, deceptive period of joy. For a fleeting moment, the king's stern face softened, and the queen's melancholic gaze held a flicker of hope. The kingdom rejoiced, believing the arrival of an heir would solidify the throne and bring lasting peace. Lyra was a delicate child, with eyes that mirrored her mother's profound depth and a spirit that seemed too gentle for the harsh realities of Eldoria. She was a beacon of innocence in a palace increasingly shadowed by unspoken tensions. Yet, even in her infancy, a strange fragility clung to her, a sense of foreboding that whispered through the nursery walls. Her laughter, though sweet, seemed to carry an undertone of inevitable sorrow, a premonition of the tragic path she was destined to walk, an innocent pawn in a game she could never understand. The gilded halls of the palace, once symbols of grandeur, began to harbor a different kind of splendor, a creeping darkness. Whispers turned to hushed conversations, and hushed conversations became pregnant silences whenever the king entered a room. Courtiers moved with cautious steps, their eyes darting nervously, sensing the shifting sands beneath their feet. The queen retreated further into herself, her already quiet demeanor evolving into a profound isolation. Servants spoke of her wandering the moonlit gardens, her voice barely a murmur as she spoke to unseen specters. The princess, too young to grasp the complexities, nonetheless absorbed the pervasive tension, her innocent sketches often depicting shadowy figures lurking in the corners of her imaginary castles. A subtle chill had permeated the very stones of the palace, an unseen hand tightening its grip, preparing for the storm ahead. King Thuron's ambition, once a guiding star, had now become a ravenous beast. He yearned not just for dominion over Eldoria, but for an empire that stretched beyond its borders, fueled by a relentless drive for power and an insatiable desire to silence any challenge to his authority. He engaged in brutal campaigns, sacrificing countless lives and depleting the kingdom's resources, all in pursuit of an ever-expanding dominion. The people suffered, their admiration turning to fear, then to resentment. His once noble visage began to contort with paranoia and suspicion, seeing enemies in every shadow, betrayal in every glance. He grew distant from his queen, viewing her only as a vessel for succession, and from his daughter, seeing her as a mere symbol rather than a cherished child. The pursuit of power had consumed his very soul, leaving behind a hollow shell of a monarch, driven by an insatiable hunger that would ultimately devour them all. The queen's silent struggles deepened with each passing day. The isolation became her prison, the grandeur of her chambers a gilded cage. She saw the light fade from the king's eyes, replaced by an unsettling fire of obsession. Her heart, once filled with a quiet hope for her daughter's future, now throbbed with a constant ache of dread. She would spend hours gazing at Lyra, a silent plea in her eyes, as if begging forgiveness for a fate she could not alter. The weight of the king's cruelty, his relentless pursuit of power, and the kingdom's growing despair pressed down upon her. She bore the burden of her own hidden sorrows, secrets brought from her homeland that now festered in the oppressive atmosphere of Eldoria. Her once gentle spirit began to crack under the immense pressure, her fragile sanity slowly unraveling, unnoticed by those too consumed by their own fears. Princess Lyra, growing into a delicate bloom, was a creature of ethereal beauty and profound sensitivity. Her world, however, was not one of fairy-tale dreams but of hushed whispers and solemn faces. She inherited her mother's melancholic eyes, eyes that seemed to hold ancient sorrows beyond her years. While other children played, Lyra would often be found in solitary corners of the garden, sketching morbid images or humming ancient, forgotten tunes. Her destiny, though royal, felt fragile, suspended by a thread that could snap at any moment. She sensed the darkness that permeated the palace, an unspoken tension that clung to her parents like a shroud. Her innocence was a vulnerable shield against a world steeped in adult despair, and the whispers she heard from the servants, stories of her father's ruthlessness and her mother's growing despair, began to paint a terrifying picture of her own inescapable future. Among the tapestries and shadowed alcoves of the palace, a forbidden secret began to take root, nurtured by fear and desperation. It was a truth too dangerous to speak aloud, a betrayal so profound it threatened to shatter the very foundations of the throne. The queen, in her escalating despair, had sought solace in forbidden knowledge, in ancient prophecies whispered from her own distant, shadowed heritage. These prophecies spoke of a usurper, of a lineage that would rise from the ashes of Eldoria, and of a power hidden within her own bloodline. This secret, entwined with a clandestine affair born of loneliness and shared sorrow with a trusted advisor, became a volatile force. It was a desperate act of rebellion against her gilded cage, a dangerous gamble for a fleeting moment of connection, but one that would ultimately seal her tragic fate and the downfall of all she held dear. The kingdom of Eldoria teetered on the precipice of collapse, its foundations eroded by the king's insatiable greed and the growing unrest among the people. Famine gripped the land, taxes soared, and dissent simmered beneath a thin veneer of order. Thuron, blinded by his own paranoia, saw rebellion in every shadowed corner. His once loyal advisors scattered, fearing his unpredictable rage. The whispers of the queen's forbidden secret, amplified by jealous tongues and treacherous hearts, reached the king's ears. The fragile truce that held the royal family together shattered, replaced by an explosion of fury. Accusations of treason and infidelity echoed through the palace, tearing through the last vestiges of dignity and trust. The illusion of a powerful kingdom, built on blood and ambition, crumbled into dust, exposing the rotten core beneath. The queen's end was as sorrowful as her life. Accused of treason and infidelity, her trials were swift and merciless, a cruel mockery of justice orchestrated by a king consumed by wrath. She faced her fate with a quiet dignity, her eyes still holding that profound melancholic depth, but now also a flicker of defiance. The palace courtyard, usually a place of royal ceremony, became her execution ground. As the axe fell, a gasp rippled through the gathered few, not of shock, but of shared sorrow. Her death was not a cleansing, but a deepening of the shadows over Eldoria, a final extinguishing of hope. Princess Lyra, hidden away, heard the muffled cries and the subsequent silence, an unbearable weight settling upon her young soul. The queen, the foreign flower, withered and died, a testament to the cruelty of a throne built on blood. King Thuron's reign, already steeped in shadow, plunged into an abyss of madness after the queen's execution. Haunted by specters of betrayal and the phantom of his own ruthless ambition, he became a tyrant devoid of reason. His grand palace, now silent and desolate, echoed with his solitary rage. He saw enemies everywhere, his once sharp mind clouded by paranoia and guilt. His kingdom, already in disarray, spiraled into anarchy as his grasp on power loosened. Former allies turned against him, sensing his weakness, while the suffering populace rose in desperate revolt. The iron grip he once held over Eldoria became a trembling hand, incapable of stemming the tide of retribution. His end was not one of glory on the battlefield, but a pathetic, solitary downfall, consumed by the very darkness he had unleashed upon his kingdom. Princess Lyra, the fragile bloom, was left adrift in the storm. Orphaned and isolated, she became a pawn in the ensuing chaos, a symbol for various factions vying for control of the broken kingdom. Her innocence was stripped away, replaced by a chilling understanding of the world's cruelty. She watched as Eldoria devoured itself, the legacy of her parents dissolving into dust and ash. Her fate, once entwined with the throne, became a tragic echo of her mother's sorrow. Some say she disappeared into the night, spirited away by loyalists. Others whisper of her tragic demise, caught in the crossfire of a vengeful mob. Regardless of the exact circumstances, her destiny was irrevocably sealed, a life unfulfilled, a throne lost, an innocent spirit crushed by the weight of a cursed lineage, and a kingdom steeped in eternal darkness. The grand kingdom of Eldoria, once a beacon of power under King Thuron, now lay in desolate ruins, a stark monument to ambition, betrayal, and sorrow. Its magnificent palace, once bustling with life, stood as a hollow shell, its windows like vacant eyes staring out at a wasteland. The people, decimated by famine and conflict, spoke of the royal family in hushed tones, their names synonymous with tragedy. The tale of King Thuron's relentless pursuit of power, Queen Alara's silent despair, and Princess Lyra's stolen innocence became a haunting lullaby, sung by mothers to warn their children of the perils of greed and the unforgiving hand of fate. The whispers of the past, carried on the cold Eldorian winds, spoke of a curse that lingered, a somber echo of a dynasty swallowed whole by the shadows it had created. History bleeds, and its echoes are written in the cries of kings, queens, and lost princesses. This was the Fear Room. Don't forget to subscribe and like for more dark history tales.